This module is called MinusDrafting and Outlining. In case you missed the concept of the special vocabulary in this course, MinusDrafting refers to the fact that you sit in front of the computer and just let it rip. Don't censor your thoughts, don't stop to punctuate, don't stop to critique your sentences, just keep on moving from one thought to another. In other words, you are actively creating and you are writing, if you will, and you don't want to interrupt the flow. It's difficult to get in touch with the flow, and it's best if we let it simply be. The other way of dealing with creating a document is through outlining, and I will present some ideas along those lines in this module as well. What is MinusDrafting? Simply put, MinusDrafting is when we sit down at the computer and just type away without regard to grammar, organization, structure, or anything else. We're just getting our thoughts out onto the screen so that we have a record of our thinking. This means that we are being creative. We are asking our creative unconscious to supply material that it has been considering for the particular project we are talking about. So we sit down and we dump our thoughts on the page. We just type, 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 type. It's important at this point not to stop for errors in grammar, not to stop for errors in spelling, not to stop for rearranging sentences. We are not editing. We are in the fever and the process of writing, and we are getting all our thoughts out on the page so that we can then shape them, organize them, and put them in the order that is most effective for impacting the reader. In other words, we are creating the raw material. Our creative unconscious has been considering the raw material for quite a while. I'd like to do a thought experiment with you. Let's suppose you and a friend are driving down the highway at about 70 miles an hour, and you and your friend are having an important, valuable, and very engaging discussion. My question to you is, who's driving the car? Your ego is engaged in the discussion. It can't be driving the car. So what we're relying on is the creative unconscious. We don't realize, but our creative unconscious manages hundreds of thousands of details at every moment of every day of our life. So when we have a writing project, if we've been doing research, the project itself will already have been tempered and shaped by the creative unconscious. One of the notions is that much of the minus draft will not be in the final draft. And most certainly, as we edit, the final draft will have rearranged and reordered and resequenced. So, to discuss the minus drafting process, let's just take it step by step. First, just let it rip. Keep on trucking. Or, as a client of mine said, get it down, not good. Get it down, not good. Just get it down, not good. Once you've done that, then set the whole draft aside. And after a few minutes or hours, preferably more time the better, reread the minus draft completely, from beginning to end. And what's important in the rereading process is not to judge it and figure out what's wrong with the minus draft, but rather to figure out what's right with the minus draft, to value and appreciate how my creative unconscious has already thought through the project much more than I expected and realized. Once you've given your minus draft enough time to cool, what you want to do is read it and X-ray it with your brain and your eyes to see the skeleton below the flesh of words. Your creative unconscious has already organized the material. It is very impossible for most people in the business world to write illogical documents because we are all trained to be logical. So we want to find out what was the organization that the creative unconscious used. And at another point you can learn the forms of organization, and that will help you. And the question we need to be asking is, how has my creative unconscious, my mainframe, organized the information? Once I figured that out, then I use formators to highlight the skeleton. If it's organized as an analysis of time from the past to the present, then that is a nice structure and we highlight that. If it's organized in terms of priorities of ideas, important, less important, then we need to highlight that. If it's organized in terms of a process, then we need to highlight that. So we need to let the reader know how the information is organized. And our creative unconscious has organized the information. To review the MinusDrafting process, step 1, get it down, not good. Step 2, identify the underlying organization. Step 3, reorganize if necessary. Often everything is present but in the wrong order. Add formators to communicate the organization to the reader. What is an outline? An outline is the structure underneath the writing. It's the framework on which the piece of writing is placed. The outline shows the relationship of the parts to the whole, and the outline shows the relationship of the parts to the main idea. What I would like to do here is put images of outlines in the slide and pop them up one by one. When outlining, we are dealing with the thoughts rather than with their expression. In other words, we're trying to figure out our ideas rather than the sentences that describe those ideas. We're focused on the ideas rather than getting into wordsmithing words. Furthermore, we're trying very hard to clarify the relationship between the whole and the parts and other parts, so that we can figure out how this paragraph or how this piece of thought or how this piece of data fits into the whole and how it relates to the other parts. Furthermore, we are working at the boundaries of our thinking. When outlining, we're kind of thinking about, where does this idea belong? Does it belong at the beginning? Does it belong in the middle? Does it belong at the end? And is it an idea that is less important, more important? So this is the notion here when we're outlining. So this is what we're doing. Outlining provides several benefits. First of all, it saves time. Second, it is convenient because we can be dealing with the ideas rather than moving whole blocks of text around. And by having the outline and working on the outline, we provide a stronger skeleton to the document. Furthermore, it provides us as the writer with a clarification of the organization of the material. When outline, it's best if we use clauses rather than topics, because clauses contain an idea, whereas topics are simply tags or names of things. So for example, we want to know, to have a clause, we want to know what is talked about and what is said about that. So rather than saying Sally, we might say Sally is late. Rather than saying running, we might want to say running is a healthy activity. This will also make your outline more specific and more organized. In this little thought experiment, we can think through what I'm talking about. For example, saying marketing leaves the notion of marketing wide open. We don't know what we're really talking about, marketing. And a few days after the meeting or after the presentation, we wonder in our own mind what it is that we were trying to say. It's better if we have the idea. Marketing is weak. So I have the same situation with sales. So you might say sales are down. Advertising. Advertising is ineffective. Product needs to be improved. So this then makes the outline a lot stronger, because the idea is there rather than just the topic. When you're dealing with complex thoughts, it is best to break them down into single ideas, so that in the outline it's clear how those ideas are related. So for example here, we have research shows positive results that can be translated into a viable product. So we have research shows positive results, and research can be translated into a viable product. That way those two ideas can be moved around as part of the outline. When creating an outline, it is good to follow the process listed here, where we immerse ourselves in the data that we've been looking and generating, and then we list ideas that we might put into the outline. Then we create thought boxes, and thought boxes are little containers into which we put ideas. And we sort the thought boxes, and then we prioritize the ideas within the thought boxes. Let me show you step by step how that works. When you learn to outline, you probably learn to outline this way, as I've listed it on this slide. The problem I always found with this way of outlining is that you end up painting yourself into a corner, because the choices get narrower and narrower, and there's always stuff left over to be dealt with. Many years later, when I went to college, I had the opportunity to take a study course and reading comprehension course to improve my skills, and I learned a new way to do it, and I'll share that with you. So we make a list of our ideas that we might want to include in the outline. Many times, not all of the ideas go into the outline, because as we work with the outline, we see that the ideas that are not relevant don't belong there. So the next step is on the next slide. We create thought boxes. These are general categories into which we can place the ideas. So as we review the list of ideas, in all probability, it will occur to us that there are certain general categories. And by identifying those categories, we create a thought box, and we put that to the other side. Finally, we take the thought boxes one by one and arrange the ideas within the thought boxes logically. And so we might change the order of the ideas to help make our writing much more efficient and much more effective. I recommend you use an outliner rather than trying to do and write papers in your word processor. Having an outline is a roadmap to the document you're creating, whether that's a term paper or a legal argument or a brief of some way. So I recommend MaxThink at maxthink.com. I've been using MaxThink since 1989, and I use it for all of my work because it helps me think things through rather than write them through. So go ahead, play with it, and hopefully you'll see the benefit in it as I have. This is the final word on outlining. I hope you found these thoughts useful, and try both outlining and MinusDrafting, two powerful tools for getting your ideas out on the page.